Hello, and good afternoon. My name is David Kostenbader, CEO of the Contact Group. I want to thank you for joining our live interactive teleconference, Resort Trades Town Hall, titled Resort Resiliency. The mission statement that inspired Resort Trades to present this town hall was to help knit together the resort community in the face of the COVID-19 fallout. We hope that providing a platform for professionals involved in the resort industry to hear and discuss ideas for recovery can be of service. As I'm sure you all know, Resort Trades is a monthly publication, the only true news journal published for over 32 years. Resort Trades is in print and online, and Resort Weekly via email. We're pleased to have the publisher and CEO with us today, Sharon Wilson, who is our host and will speak in a moment. Sharon, how are you doing today?
I'm great, David. Thank you.
Good to hear from you. I would like to introduce our other sponsor, Bob Kobach of Customer Count, who I had the good fortune to meet at my first ARTA event at the Fall Conference in 2019. Good afternoon, Bob.
David, how are you? Sharon, hi, how are you?
We're doing well.
Good, thank you.
So I'm one of those people that believes that I still use my phone to talk. It's good to know that this kind of a forum still exists, and that this kind of a type of forum can attract as many people as it has attracted. But I'm also one of those people that's wondering what the hell just happened. I mean, 4 months ago, we were preparing to go to ARTA World. We were preparing to see all of you people. I think I've had at least one cocktail with everybody on this call. If not, I'm happy to buy you one when I see you in November at the Fall ARTA. But in the meantime, this is a great forum, and Sharon, I really appreciate you letting me and Customer Count participate with you in this interactive environment. So I'm looking forward to listening. I'm looking forward to learning. And I also want to give a real quick shout out to one of the speakers, Ann Donahue, who is very largely responsible for us being in the customer experience measurement business in the first place. So enjoy. And I believe Sharon has a few things she wants to add.
Yeah, thank you, Bob. Thank you, David, as well, for being our co-sponsors. Really grateful. And you, Georgie and John Loker, Georgie Borod Gordon, that is. I'm Sharon Wilson, publisher of Resort Trades, and I wanted to welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us. And I hope that you will become an interactive participant, whether you type out your question, answer a poll, hit *3, and go on live to ask a question, because we're in it together, like they keep saying. So first, I wanted to say a huge thank you to our two sponsors, David Kostenbader and his team at the Contact Group, for hosting and moderating this event for us. And I want to say to our listeners, if you need a way to contact thousands or maybe only a few hundred HOA members or associates or someone, you'll want to give David here a call. And I'd also like to thank our other sponsor, Bob Kobach of Customer Count. Recently, Resort Trades had Customer Count do a reader survey, and they were terrific. So it has a very sophisticated system. So, and our thanks to Georgie Borod of GBG and Associates. Particularly in these challenging times, I believe many of you could use her help in your PR and marketing efforts. And thanks also to John Loker for his enthusiasm and willingness to pitch in. Thank you. Now, our overall topic is resort resilience, and it's a broad one. So to break it down for us, we'll be allowing the speakers a few minutes each to discuss 4 topics in particular. Ann Donahue, Senior Vice President of Resort Operations and Inventory Marketing for Raintree Resorts International, and I think you need a longer title, will share some ideas for improving owner communications. Jay Anderson, who's Vice President of Resort Operations at Grand Pacific Resorts Management, points out suggestions for best practices for reopening a resort. Great value, and let's hope we all need that. Melanie Gring of Global Connections has some great ideas for improving sales practices. Lena Combs and Tom Durkee of Withum Smith Plus Brown will delve into a few financial matters, including budgeting and cash flow. Oh, very important stuff that they're going to come up with here. Plus, Tom's going to talk about some issues concerning the CARES Act. So even if we run over a little bit, I hope that you guys will stay tuned because these guys really know their stuff. So you can follow, well, we all do.
So to start us off today, we have, give me 1 second here, Ann Donahue. Ann is the Senior Vice President of Resort Operations and Inventory Marketing for Raintree Resorts International. It's a Houston-based hospitality company. Previously, Ann was President of Barker & Associates Incorporated, a consulting firm specializing in consumer research, business intelligence, and quality assurance. She was formerly Director of Consumer Insight for Starwood Vacation Ownership. Ann, welcome to the show.
Thank you, David. It's great to be here. I don't know about you guys, but I am so excited to have an opportunity to be connected with this many people from our industry. It has been really tough being isolated and housebound. So I hope that everybody is open for some fun times and interaction, because the only way we're all going to get through this is to help one another. So hopefully we'll have a lot of good insights during the course of this town hall, and we will all engage in some new ideas and new opportunities. I'd just like to say that I feel very honored to have been asked to talk about owner communication. As Bob Kovac kind of alluded to, I do have a passion about our owners, and we at Raintree refer to our as members rather than owners. So I will use those terms interchangeably as I go through my presentation today. We have a great member service and member communication team at Raintree, and we also have a very supportive CEO and president that realize just how critical communication with our members is during this unprecedented time. So I'm going to go through some things that might look a little bit elementary to you, but we looked at this as a very simple what, why, when, how do we communicate during this unprecedented time that none of us have ever experienced anything like this. So we looked at the what. What are we trying to accomplish? Well, for one thing, we want to keep our members engaged. When all of this came down, I can doubt that many people were thinking of, gee, when am I going to get to go on vacation again? So how do we keep them engaged when they're housebound and they're worried about all these other things? We need to let them know that we sympathize, we have empathy with what they're going through, and we care about them. We need to get that message to them as we go through this crazy time we're going through. And we want to establish a way to maintain their dreams of vacation. So looking at the why is it so important that we do this, we thought, well, number one, we want them to come back. They are, after all, the lifeblood of our business. We want to make membership easy and attractive. And we want them to understand, and this is a hard one, we want them to understand that even though our resorts are closed, there is a cost that we still have to incur while the resorts are closed. So how do we do that? Well, first we had to design a roadmap that would let us accomplish this. And I have to tell you, that's not an easy thing to do. I don't know about you guys, but my email boxes have been inundated every day with emails from every business I have probably ever even looked at online, let alone done business with. So how do we know how often to communicate? How do we know what message is going to attract the attention, because we're competing with a lot of other people sending out emails or putting things on social media or that type of thing, and how much information is too much to send out at any one time. And then you have to look at what are the methods. Like I said, email boxes are being inundated, social media is being inundated. So how do we establish a communication strategy that's really going to work? Well, we decided to do it quite often. About once a week, we're communicating with our members, in addition to keeping updates on our website of resort closings, resort openings, and letting them know what to expect down the road. And when things do reopen, we'll be updating on the website. But we also wanted to send special messages. So the first thing we wanted people to know is that, number one, you're not going to be punished because your vacation had to be canceled. We're not going to penalize you. You're not going to be charged a charge for changing your reservation. This isn't your fault, and we're not going to impose any penalties on you. We want them to know that we care about their safety. We sent that out in our first communication. We care about you. Please stay safe. Keep your family safe. And let them know that we are also taking care of the safety of our employees, and we're taking care of the resorts so that they'll be ready when they come back. Then the next week, we decided to send them another email that said, not only are we not going to impose any penalty for not using or not being able to use your points, but we're also going to give you some bonus points that will have extended use, so that when this does pass and we are able to travel, you'll be able to extend that travel and not feel like you're losing anything because of this time lapse of not being able to go to the resorts. And then our third communication, we wanted to really start offering something that would incent our members to want to come back when the travel bans are lifted and when they're feeling safe. So we offered them a lot of incentives. We offered them short-term and long-term incentives for paying their maintenance fees on time, extension of their points use over a very long period of time. Their points won't, as long as they're maintaining their membership with us, their points will not expire for an extended period of time. And we also offered them a free week that they could either use themselves or give to family members to come to the resort when things clear up. So we tried to make it very, very valuable. And we did hear back from our members. They were very pleased that we were looking out after them and were aware of how traumatic this was for them and how maybe they weren't thinking about vacation, but gee, with these incentives, maybe I do want to get back out there. And then one strategy that we use that I personally am very pleased with, and it just, it ended up being such a great opportunity for our employees as well as our members. We ask our employees from our 3 flagship resorts in Mexico, we ask our employees to put together a video for our members that with a message that they wanted to get them, with the employees that our members are used to seeing year after year as they come back. What is the story you want to say to them? And they did this all on their own. We didn't hire a production company. We didn't do anything elaborate. We let our employees design and produce a video that we posted. We sent it through email, we posted it on our Facebook pages, and we had it on YouTube for our members. And I can't even begin to tell you the response we had from this was overwhelming. The people that watched it, the people that sent personal emails. We had members writing and saying, I cried when I saw the people and I heard your message. The members got the feel of the vacation, and this is where I want to go back, and I want to do this, and here are the people that I see that make my vacation a wonderful experience. So that was a very, very effective thing that we did in communicating with our members. But it doesn't end there. We are looking at a proposed opening date for our 3 Mexico properties which is in late June. But we still have to design and continue to design communication for our members. Even when they start coming back, they're not going to come back in droves. It's going to take a while to get people feeling comfortable, feeling safe, and we must communicate that feeling of safety to them and letting them know what we're doing. We're in the process of building a communication we'll send out showing them all of the safety procedures that we are implementing based on governmental requirements, based on CDC and all of the other agencies that have requirements out there. We're going to send them pictures of this is what it's going to look like, and this is how we're taking care of you. We're going to, after we send that, we want to do a survey with our members to say, at the voice of the customer, what will make you feel safe to come back on vacation? We're going to continue to look at different kinds of communications and continue to stay in contact with our members even after they are coming back to are allowed to come back to the resorts. So what I would just like to say and leave you with as a thought is that what we know as the need to stay connected with our members is not a one and done. It's something that we have to maintain. It's going to take us a long time to rebuild the confidence in people to come on leisure vacations and stay in hotels and be interacting with crowds of people. So we're going to keep building our communications, and with effective communications, I really, really believe we will find our way back to the future. Thank you for listening.
Yeah, thank you, Ann. This is David. So we do have a question from online. Delia Guyant. She had a question about when you, I think, mentioned something about no maintenance fees. Her question is free, no maintenance fees to pay, ? Can you elaborate a little bit about that?
Okay, and boy, if that's how I came across, I would probably be fired if our president and CEO heard me say that. I'm glad you asked that question because that was not what I was saying. What I was trying to say is that when people pay their maintenance fees, they will get bonus points and there will be incentives for them to pay their maintenance fees on time, extending their point usage, giving them bonus points. So it's not that they don't pay it, it's that when they pay it, they get something special.
Great. And that makes total sense. And again, that's why I think communication is so important, because it can be misconstrued too if it's not, followed up on and communicated clearly. So that's great. And we appreciate your presentation. We'll have some more questions as we get further into our presentation. Up next, we have Jay Anderson. Jay, with over 20 years experience in the hospitality sector, became Vice President Resort Operations at Grand Pacific Resorts Management in 2014. His prior roles include serving as General Manager of Carlsbad Sea Point Resort and Grand Pacific Palisades Resort and Hotel, as well as Canada Area Manager and Regional Director. Jay, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Ann. That was excellent. I really appreciate how you're polling the owners to ask them what they need to make them feel safe. And that's a nice segue into my presentation as well, where I'll discuss some of the things we're doing at Grand Pacific Resorts. Also, I'd like to thank Resort Trades and the sponsors for the honor and the privilege of being able to present today. Once again, my name is Jay Anderson. I'm the VP of Business Development and Operations at Grand Pacific Resorts. And for a quick background, Grand Pacific Resorts has 22 multi-use projects in our portfolio, 18 resorts and 4 hotels located primarily in California and Hawaii. Although, I should mention, we are very interested in helping resorts everywhere. We offer full management services as well as a la carte services such as call center and reservation support. Our guiding purpose is creating experiences worth sharing, and we do that always with a Be Epic attitude. In the presentation today, I'm going to quickly outline an overall resort health checkup that we implement at GPR, and then I'll discuss some of the key areas to focus on as we move forward with reopening our resorts in this new COVID-19 era of operations. So let's move on to the next slide here. You'll see we have a health check continuum on the slide, and we found the key to a healthy resort is understanding this self-sustaining cycle of operations. As part of this cycle, it starts with our associates or team members or employees. They come first. We flip the pyramid, and everything is designed around being of service to them and constantly empowering the associates with support, education, benefits, and real opportunities for personal and professional growth. Happy, well-trained employees produce excellent service, which then translates to engaged owners who are involved with our property. And as Ann outlined, that frequent communication and outreach to our owners is critical to keep them connected. And then we should quantify, or we do quantify and track our communications and owner use to make sure they're engaged. We find that engaged owners are dues-paying owners, and when owners fail to pay, you should be able to quickly and seamlessly monetize the non-performing inventory through a robust rental and resale program instead of passing on increased fees to the performing owners. So finally, a financially healthy association can invest back in the facilities, and this keeps the value of your property high for resale and rental purposes, as well as help to maintain owner satisfaction. So that's just a general overall health check, and we have several KPIs and measurements that we identify around each piece of the continuum. Moving on, though, now we're in unprecedented times, and as everyone knows, the resorts are needing to reevaluate their operations. With the public focus increasingly on cleanliness and sanitation, Grand Pacific Resorts is launching a new initiative that we call Vacation Well. And this initiative is composed of 3 critical areas or phases. And the first phase is work completed during pre-opening. Then there's guest room preparation and the enhanced guest room cleaning procedures, and then reopening protocols. And I can't go into detail on each component, otherwise you'll be drinking from a fire hose, but I give you a broad overview of the key areas that you should be considering. So, moving on to pre-opening. First and foremost, we want to assure that our associates stay healthy and safe. As we mentioned in the continuum, everything starts with your associates. During closures, some of the employees have been retained to work on our special projects at the resorts as we prepare for reopening. But unfortunately, many were placed on a temporary leave of absence. During this time, while the employees are out, it's been important to keep in constant contact with them, to keep them tethered to the resort. We've been helping them with unemployment, sending them gift baskets, and just reaching out to them on a real regular basis to keeping them engaged and letting them know how valued they are. So that as we prepare for reopening, we can quickly recall them to the resort. We're also stocking up on 90-day plus supply of PPE or personal protective equipment, and this includes new uniform standards that incorporate face masks, goggles, booties, and nitrate gloves. Also, cleaning chemicals and tools are needed that are more specific to killing viruses and bacteria. Some of the things that we are purchasing are electrostatic sprayers, pure tabs, and then there's a whole laundry list of specialized cleaning products. American Hotel and Lodging Association, Ecolab, and Waxy offer some real good guidelines. In fact, we've partnered with Ecolab and Waxy, and we're implementing their hospital-level quality of cleanliness standards. As housekeeping prepares for reopening, we're doing things in the units like reducing the amount of housewares in the units, so there's less areas that could potentially transfer the virus. And then we do anticipate owners requesting some housewares and things, and we'll be providing those in individually wrapped disposable forms whenever possible. Dish racks are being removed, so we encourage the use of the dishwashers. Welcome baskets are updated to include disinfectant wipes and hand sanitizers. In-room magazines, compendiums, and other collateral are being removed, and prepackaged bathroom amenity kits are being provided. For the common areas, we're installing hand sanitizers throughout. We're updating the signage throughout the resort so that there's encouragement of safe practices and social distancing, and just letting them know all the steps we're taking as part of our one of the pieces of our communication efforts. Furniture is being rearranged to allow for social distancing spaces in the lobby and the pool areas and throughout. Community coffee and water stations are being eliminated. At the front desk, we're installing sneeze guards. We're creating contact-free check-in processes, utilizing technology such as Apple Pay and similar direct payment methods. We're also implementing a curbside check-in process. Our maintenance teams are going through and replacing all the HVAC filtration, flushing water outlets, installing motion sensors everywhere, wherever possible, where they're not already installed. And then we're relying heavily on Kipsu. It's a texting platform that we use, and that texting platform is going to help us communicate with our guests and owners pre-arrival for check-in process, that curbside check-in process, as well as in-house and post-stay communication. Moving on to Guestroom preparation. Housekeeping and cleanliness, as everyone knows, is going to be the name of the game. It's going to be highly scrutinized and highly visible in this post-COVID era. So accordingly, cleaning standards are modified at Grand Pacific Resorts, and we're increasing the cleaning times per unit by 30 to 50%. And staffing levels in our housekeeping department will need to increase accordingly. We're creating enhanced training and SOP protocols, and we have a certification program for different levels of quality assurance and training. As the room attendants enter the rooms, the dishes are segmented and run through the dishwasher on sanitation settings, and that's potentially multiple times based on the different dish types. We're implementing color-coded cleaning cloths to avoid cross-contamination of chemicals. Room attendants are required to swap out the gloves. It's part of their uniform, the nitrate gloves, at different intervals throughout the cleaning process. We've enhanced our inspection and release programs. We've incorporated the electrostatic sprayer. So after the room is cleaned and while it's being inspected, the room attendant or the inspectress is going to go through and make sure that everything is sprayed with the electrostatic sprayer. And then the room is sealed after that for guest occupancy. And if the seal is broken for any reason, we need to start that process over again, reinspect the room, respray it, and reseal it. And then we have software that we utilize called No Cross, and we have a platform called No Housekeeping where we document all those cleaning procedures, the time, the people that were in the unit, when they were in the unit. It all becomes part of a permanent record that's going to become more and more important, I think, as we move forward on a liability mitigation concern. As we move in and prepare for reopening, we are implementing social distance guidelines, mapping out on the floors and with signage as needed. We also are screening the health of our associates prior to every shift. So when the associates come into work, managers will be taking their temperatures, and if they register above 100 degrees, the employee is given a sick day, and he or she is able to return once the temperature reduces. Employees that are demonstrating COVID-19 symptoms are handled with special care. We would have a VP of Human Resources interact with them, make sure that they are quarantined if necessary from the resort, and then if necessary, contact tracing may be implemented so that we can see all the affected parties, and then address from a quarantine perspective if necessary. If an owner or guest is suspected of being sick, we'll take their unit off market for 72 hours after they check out. And then that unit would need enhanced cleaning protocols, and we would call in a licensed third-party service to go through and do a final check on that unit. And again, that documentation would become critical in that scenario. Public area cleaning schedules are increased to hourly servicing, again with use of electrostatic sprayers. In-room cleaning frequency for the in-room guests is decreased, and if it is requested, we would do the servicing, but we're going to have some vacant unit requirements so that the room attendant is in the unit alone, servicing the unit, again with all the PPE equipment. Activities programs we're modifying to avoid group gatherings, and we're encouraging self-directed activities. So we'll continue with the robust activities program, but it's going to be a lot of recommendations around things people can do on their own or as a family in their unit, and we'll have supplies and things like that available. And we're restricting day use. So finally, as Ann mentioned, communication is going to be critical with owners and with the public. We want to make sure everyone's aware of our vacation well protocols, so we have lots of marketing pieces designed around those to help everyone gain confidence in vacationing again. And I know we kind of ran through a lot in a short period of time. Hopefully some nugget of information was helpful, and I would open it up for any questions or pass it back.
Jay, I'm new to the industry. Can you just give me an idea of where Grand Pacific resorts are located? It sounds exotic to me. I just want to. I've traveled to Hawaii before, but I'd love an idea of kind of where your resorts are located.
Yeah, well, we're hoping to expand throughout the world, but right now we're located in California primarily. Southern California, we have a large presence, so San Diego County, as well as Lake Tahoe area. And then we have resorts in Hawaii as well, the island of Kauai and Princeville area, if you're familiar with Kauai. All beautiful resorts and great locations.
Super. So some of the questions we have, Cindy Smith online has asked two questions. What is the texting program that you're using, Jay? I'm not sure if you can share that or not, but she had a question on the actual texting program you're using.
That is Kipsu. So there's a couple different companies out there that offer these texting programs. One is Zingle, and the other is Kipsu, and there may be others as well that I'm just not familiar with. But we use Kipsu. We're very happy with it. It integrates with our property management system. It allows us to text back and forth with the owners and guests, giving them lots of information regarding activities or special notices, and guests and owners can text us if they have requests that they need for their room, and then we're implementing that as part of a pre-arrival process as well to help allow for the curbside check-in. So Kipsu.
Super. Great, Kipsu, okay. And we have another question from Tim Wilson online. Tim has wanted to know the name of the software for the housekeeping touches and re-entry.
Our housekeeping software platform is called NoCross, and that's KNOWCROSS. And NoCross has lots of different modules from maintenance to front office to service recovery. The housekeeping module is the one that gives you some really robust reporting regarding time in, time out, inspection process, cleaning times, protocols, things like that.
Super. At this time, we'd like to introduce, we did have Tom Lyons to speak to us today. Tom, unfortunately, is not able to make it. So in his place, we have Melanie Gring. Melanie joined Global Connections, Inc. in 2004, directs and coordinates all corporate communications, brand management, and strategic growth through the development and support of its independent distributor sales and marketing model. Melanie also plays an integral role in product development, enhancement, and implementation, utilizing her 45 years of experience in the vacation industry. Melanie, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'd like to thank Resort Trades, our hosts, and our sponsors for allowing us all to share our experiences and what we are learning from this pandemic. I would like to say that Global Connections is, I just need to be clear, is not a timeshare company. We are a resort developer, however, and then we also have built and support and fulfill a travel club called Global Discovery Vacations. As you said, Tom Lyons is supposed to be here. He's really sorry he couldn't be, so I get to do this. I'm actually kind of excited about it. So this pandemic has made everyone value even more family time, and vacationing is even more important, even though the money is a little bit tight right now. But people are starting to plan, and I've noticed that, you know, a lot of the movement is, you know, taking the road trips across America, which I think is wonderful because, you know, see America first, right? We have noticed in our group, in our membership, that people are starting to inquire about cruises as well as traveling abroad. So it's going to happen, guys. It's out there. So just hang tight. I think we're going to have a new normal, but I think it's going to be an exciting new normal. So what I really wanted to talk about today is the sales practices. This has been my focus for today's call, if you will. And so sales practices post-COVID-19. I'm going to try to address the three main improvements that Global has made in its sales practices, meaning its product, which is Global Discovery Vacations, the pricing strategy that we're having to change, as well as what we're doing in sales operations. So let's just talk a little bit about our product, which I've told you was Global Discovery Vacations. It's about a 20-year-old product. It's been around that long. And so we, you know, took a look at it and thought, you know, maybe with all this that's going on, maybe it's time we need to freshen that up a little bit and change some of what's going on. We've always had, you know, an activity fee. And again, now we're talking as a travel club, we're not a timeshare. So we call it an annual activity fee versus a maintenance fee. And the reason we use the word activity, which I'll explain later, is because it is optional from year to year. And I'll have to talk a little bit more on that because I know that's going to be raising a little heads up antennas. We also took a look at restructuring our membership club, as well as some of the benefits included. So let's just start talking a little bit about the pricing strategy. So we've been meaning to do this for a while, but with all that's going on, we thought, now's a good time to kind of take a step back. We compared our club product to what's in the vacation marketplace with other travel clubs, other membership type clubs, as well as timeshare. And while all of those are great vacationing products, I stand behind every one of them. I don't point fingers. I like a little bit of everything. But we saw where we needed to change some of our benefits, as well as the way the operations was working, to our club product. So what we did was we took it and said, okay, people are going to be vacationing different. Our existing club product had 8 different memberships. So we have the existing product that, you know, prior to this one, had 8 membership levels, all right? So we took a look at that and thought, you know, maybe that's just a little pigeonholing, right? And when I say 8 membership levels, I'm saying that our product uses star credits as money, okay? Whereas, you know, timeshare has points, right? We have star credits. So when I say we had 8 levels, you could get 8 star credits and use those star credits to book your vacations, okay? So we kind of looked at those levels and thought, well, maybe that's a place where we could change, because if you limit yourself to only 8 levels in our world, you're also limiting your price points, and we only had the one activity fee, which again can be synonymous with the maintenance fee. So the first thing we did was we went from 8 levels of membership to 20 levels of membership. And so when we did that, it made the beginning price point a little higher, but not enough that it would discourage a new member, right? And then the top point is right around $25,000 for this product. So that may sound like a big jump from a high point of, $8,500 to $2,500, but again, it's so that our members can grow within. So we took a look at that and said, well, again, we're going to take it to our sales offices to see what they thought. But we sort of mapped that out. And then what that also allowed us to do is we could keep that annual fee that's optional, but we were able to have 5 different levels of activity fee as well. So it became a new product that is a lot more flexible and offers a lot more growth, as well as a lot more opportunity to use their points or star credits, as we call them. In addition to that, we do carry our own financing. We finance our own paper. And so we were able to, because of the way this is structured, and I hope you guys don't ask me too much detail about this because this was really where Tom was coming in. Tom Lyons, we were able to offer additional financing to cover these higher price points. But the one thing that we were really excited about doing was we were giving the existing members that we have full credit for what they paid for their existing membership towards this new membership. So if someone, had paid let's say $8,000 for the, the 8-star credit level, they were going to get a full $8,000 credit. Now, with that said, they couldn't take, they couldn't join this for less than $8,000, but, they could take that level and then add to it. So we thought that was a really good benefit, and the sales teams are really excited about it. So what we did once we incorporate, kind of put this together in our thoughts, then, here comes the big trial. We took it to our sales. Now, our sales operations are also different than what most of you are accustomed to. We have what's called a distributor sales model. So all of our sales offices are their own companies. They may have more than one sales company, if you will, may have more than one sales operation, more than one location, but it's their business. They're responsible for it. It's our product, it's our member, and we govern, we watch what their marketing is, because, our name's on it, so we don't want to get a complaint either. So we had to take it to our distributors and say, okay, can you sell this? It's a retooling, it's a retraining, but once they saw, at first they were, sales they're pretty apprehensive about making a change. Let's just say what it is. And I totally understand that. But with all that's going on, we were able to show them how this new plan is more palatable in light of coming off of the pandemic and what, how close their income is, if any, how short that they're going to be able to spend money on vacations in the near future. We all hope that changes pretty quickly. So with this new model, we were able to show them and explain how this hopefully, is going to put them back in the sales mode, and they get to go back to the members that they created to hopefully upgrade them into this program, especially since they're getting, full value of what they purchased before or joined before. So we took this to them, and it's been received, and a lot of them are even looking at opening up additional locations over the next coming months. Obviously, they're not ready to open up sales full force right now. The other thing that we all talked about is to our sales locations is, traditionally, our sales offices are no different than in the timeshare sales. So, traditionally you have, ours did 8 to 10 couples. I know some of the bigger timeshares have a lot more than that in each wave. So what we've done now, what they're doing now is the new model is there's going to be more waves per day, but less people in each wave, and, for social distancing. And actually, they really liked that idea as we passed it around to all the other sales offices, because they felt that then they could take more time and they would have a better rapport with, not having so many couples, that it was going to be more intimate, if you will, presentation. We also took a look at the age of the sales force. And I guess the distributors hadn't really keyed in on that because some of their sales team had been with them, 20 years, from the very beginning of the club, and are still there. And thankfully, y'all can't see me, but I'm one of those old people. So, I really appreciate them. But I also know that the communication, and I think especially in sales, you kind of get locked into that. And then if you have a younger couple sitting in front of you, the relationship's just not as strong as it could be if they had, the same type salesperson sitting in front of them. So now what's happening, they're paying attention to that. They're not assigning the salesperson to the tour based on the volume that the salesperson makes. I know there's a pecking order there, but they're assigning the salesman to the tour, to the prospect, according to the demographics, according to their age. And they tested this in a couple of sales operations that have opened up to try to learn the new product. And it's funny, just even the mindset within the group of the sales is kind of exciting. Because a really young salesperson sometimes doesn't know how to talk to an older person and vice versa. So that's been well received. I'd also like to mention one other thing. We had started this, I guess, a few years ago, and basically it was doing webinar sales. But those sales were only going to, the webinar sales were only for existing members, and we were trying to upgrade them into a higher package. There's always room for an upgrade, right? And so what we've done now, because that webinar sales office has been quite successful, we are now, because of COVID, is really expanding that operation to do new sales as well. So they're going to be, getting their own tours per se, and then doing new sales out of that one sales office now on webinars. So we're anxious to see, how that goes. We think it's going to be quite successful. So that really is actually Tom's presentation through me, but he did have a closing statement, and this has become our motto in the office. The comeback is always stronger than the setback. And so we kind of have that, like I said, that's our mantra right now. So thank you for tuning in. And again, thanks for allowing me to speak.
Yeah, thank you. That was very, very, very informative. I appreciate that. And I apologize. It's obviously we're larger than the timeshare industry on this call. It's a resort resilience. And I'm constantly learning more about the industry. So I appreciate your presentation. We do have a few, we have two more speakers. Before we get there, we have a couple of questions that came up during your presentation, Melanie. One was, how do closing rates on the webinar differ from in person? Can you kind of speak to that in maybe general terms or specific? Or that was from Judy Kenninger. How do closing rates on the webinar differ from in person?
Yes, Judy, I could see you asking that question. Thanks. I could, sit here. I wish I had been more prepared. I found out shortly before this thing started that I was even speaking. So I don't know the exact closing percentages. I do know that they're equal to or slightly higher than an in-person sales. And I think it's because on a webinar, they've pretty much asked for it and they're in the comfort of their home, right? and they're not, being brought into a sales office where they, in some cases, if they don't want to be there, that's a disaster. But I tell you what, Judy, I will get those numbers for you.
Okay. Next one, Melanie, is from Chip Brogan. Chip says, "Hi, Melanie. How are your distributors planning to manage that one-on-one presentation? Maintaining social distancing?" It's kind of the first question. And then, are they planning to use PPE? And then lastly, are they restructuring the table space between the salesperson and customer? Any unique ideas?
So as to the PPE and the table space, yes, they are pulling out tables, making it so that there is the appropriate, social distancing between tables. And as I said, they're also bringing in more waves instead of having the smaller number, but just less people at each wave. So they're hoping to see as many tours, but much more waves because of the, have to have the less number of people. But yes, they are going by those rules. And what was the other part of that question, because it disappeared?
It was any unique ideas, I guess, and I think you might have covered most of it at that point. But any other ideas on this presentation? No, I will say that as I said, they're just now starting to open up some in some areas. So I think it's going to be, I'm going to say moving target per se, because they're going to have to make changes as they go, right? So it's new to us, it's new to them. But, I think you can get my information, and you're more than welcome to follow up with me and give me a couple of months to see what happens at these sales offices, and I don't mind sharing that information. Sure. Thank you, Melanie. That was a great job. Adrian Barrett online says, "I love the comeback is always stronger than the setback." So you got shout outs for that.
Thanks, Adrian.
Yep. So,
it's yours to you.
Our final speakers tonight, or today, I guess it still is Lena Combs and Tom Durkee. Lena. Lena is a partner and practice leader at Withum's Hospitality Services Group with more than 25 years of professional accounting and business consulting experience. She has extensive expertise in audit and consulting engagements servicing clients in the hospitality and vacation ownership industry, including timeshares, owner associations, and hotels. Tom Durkee is partner at Withum with over 35 years of professional accounting and business consulting experience. He specializes in providing audits and attest engagements, business analysis and consulting, litigation support and tax planning, and compliance to clients in various industries, including timeshare developers and owner associations. Tom is a published author, PPC contributor, and speaker. Lena and Tom, welcome to the show.
Thank you, David, and thank you, Sharon, for having us today, and greetings from lovely, sunny Florida. We're going to focus a little bit on the finance part of the operation here, take a little bit of a different beat. So we have 3 topics to cover today. The first would be some cash flow and budgeting matters, and we want to touch briefly on whether or not timeshare HOAs qualify for the PPP loan, and then Tom will give an update on the CARES Act and some current status there. So the first thing is, what are some ways the resorts can continue to plan to mitigate any negative financial effects they're experiencing from possible closures, but certainly the pandemic at large? And what we want to say here is the key, which everyone knows, is to conserving cash and maintaining liquidity. So I'm sure plenty of resorts have done all kinds of things already. All kinds of measures are taken, like reducing headcount, cutting expenses. Just a few other things to consider in this. If you have fixed debt, talk to your bank about payment deferral program. If you have a loan and have entered into a forbearance agreement with your bank, make sure that you understand the repayment terms once the forbearance is over, because they do differ and some of them are not favorable. If you're extending payment terms to your vendors, for example, you're paying in 60 days versus 30 or 90 versus 60, just be sure you're having transparent discussions with those vendors so that everyone's expectations are the same. Resorts who did their billing for maintenance fees last fall likely got a good bit of their collections before this pandemic hit. So they may not be in necessarily a terrible position now if their main source of revenue comes from maintenance fees. But we don't know what next year is going to bring for delinquencies or for the collections for the rest of the year. So keeping an eye to that and planning for varying lengths of reduced cash flow certainly is going to be key, because especially if the resort is heavily dependent on transient rentals, this is going to be a huge factor. So what we suggest there is to recast the operating budget for the rest of the year and for next year with different scenarios. Have a plan A, a plan B, a plan C, etc. Reassess the risk to the organization. Most people who had done strategic planning and organizational risk assessments didn't include pandemic in there. We don't know what the new normal is going to look like, so this multiple scenario approach we suggest is a good way to prepare as best as you can, since none of us has a crystal ball. Some other things to consider would be collaborating with other resorts if possible in similar markets for marketing or other items that could be mutually beneficial to both of you. Maybe there's some cost savings to be had there. In planning to reopen, you could have difficulties in hiring your lower wage workers because they might be making more on enhanced unemployment than they would working part or even full time. So be sure that you're considering that. As Jay talked about, incentivizing the employees through this process might help with some of that rehiring. And then possibly doing some strategic marketing. You have a multiple step program. As we are starting to phase in travel, make sure your website is up to date and user-friendly so that people have one-stop shopping online to book reservations, cancel reservations, the flexible policies that Ann talked about. Considering also maybe email campaigns to those who canceled reservations with, kind of low-hanging fruit. They already have an affinity for the resort. Why not start there with those people? Our second topic today is about the PPP loan. In general, the SBA was asked to render an opinion as to whether or not HOAs qualified for the PPP loan. And to our knowledge, this was no opinion was ever rendered by them. ARDA recently put an article out, and their conclusion was essentially that it appears HOAs do not qualify as a business concern under the CARES Act. And the way we got there, the why behind that, is that timeshare associations are generally organized as corporations not for profit in their state. And the eligibility of PPP loans by the SBA rules appears to only include nonprofits that fall under Internal Revenue Code Section 501c3, with a couple of minor exceptions, which are our tax-exempt entities. So since most timeshares do not qualify as 501c3s, the general consensus is that they probably do not qualify for the PPP loans under the CARES Act. Not to say we know several resorts who have received them. We have not heard any negative commentary from bankers about that, but we just want to be sure that we put that out there and that everyone is aware of this, but the SBA has not rendered an opinion on it. Tom?
Hello, everyone, and thank you, Lena. And good afternoon. My part of the presentation is to discuss some of the other implications of the CARES Act and some other employer assisted legislation related to the coronavirus pandemic. As Lena said, I'm a partner at Withum, Smith & Brown, and along with Lena, practice in our hospitality specialty group, which we think is a pretty robust service group to our industry, and I'm happy to be here. So let's get started. First off, the status of the PPP is that, as everyone probably knows, they're in their second tranche, if you will. And the first one was gobbled up very, very quickly. It was oversubscribed. And when the second one came out, there was more known about it. A lot of big companies that were eligible were not taking the loans and were returning the money because of what we've all seen in the news about whether they were actually affected by the pandemic or not. And it became a public relations issue for them. But in any case, the second tranche still has approximately $100 million remaining in it. and is available for those that can qualify. The HEROES Act is an act that was recently passed by the House. It has about a 0 chance of getting through the Senate. It included a lot of baggage that doesn't seem to be politically passable, if that's a word, through the Republican-controlled Senate. And so we're waiting to see what happens there. Stay tuned for that. But one good program that hasn't gotten as much play as the PPP program is the Main Street Lending Program. And the reason that is interesting is because it provides available liquidity for borrowers. It is an SBA-backed program. The loans are not forgivable, but it is something that could be helpful to a lot of companies that perhaps may have difficulty satisfying underwriting requirements of traditional banks and traditional loans. These do have underwriting involved, but it's through the SBA, and these loans are guaranteed by the SBA, so the banks have less exposure and more incentive to make them. There's 3 different programs under the Main Street Loan Program. They range from $500,000 to $200 million. The interest rates are LIBOR plus 3%. In general, there's a range of 75 to 100 basis points for an origination. They can be either secured or unsecured, and their payments are deferred for 12 months from the date of the funding of the loan. They're due over a term of 4 years. So it is not long-term financing, but it's long enough financing to get some companies that perhaps need some liquidity through this crisis and on to the next chapter. The amounts of the loans are based on EBITDA generally. They range between 4 and 6 times EBITDA. And one other factor is these loans cannot be subordinate to any other financing other than mortgage financing. So I'll leave it at that. They're an interesting alternative for a lot of companies. They're also available to associations as well as management companies and other borrowers. I'm going to say a little bit about the loan forgiveness topic as it relates to the PPP. I'm not going to say a lot about it because there's been a lot of play in the press, and of course a lot of the associations that may be on this call have had to decide whether to take part in the loan or not. Certainly the management companies and developers are eligible. The high points of the program was all the money has to be spent for qualified purposes, which generally is payroll. 75% of it has to be spent on payroll, and 25% has to be spent. No more than 25% has to be spent on other costs, which are essentially rent and utilities. So it's a minimum of 75% on payroll and a maximum of 25% on these other costs. There's also a reduction in the forgiveness for what we call the head count. So if our head count goes down during what's called the covered period, which is the period after around mid-March, then there is a reduction in the forgiveness amount. It doesn't affect your ability to get the loan, but it does affect the forgivable amount. There's also a wage reduction test. If wages are cut for particular employees by more than 25%. And this is very technical stuff. We have a lot of it on our website, which is withum.com, or you can call Lena or me about any questions that may come to you later. There's a couple of additional incentives or legislation that we feel is positive for companies and even HOAs that have employees, and those are the employee retention credits and the deferral of payroll taxes. And just very quickly, the employee retention credits are available to entities that have not gotten a Payroll Protection Program loan. Very generally, it's equal to 50% of the first $10,000 per employee of wages. There's different criteria for entities with under 100 employees and those over 100 employees. And it affects the payroll that's eligible for this benefit is payroll incurred after March 12th and before January 1, 2021. The second of these additional incentives or benefits is what we call the deferral of payroll taxes. Again, it is not eligible for anybody who has a PPP loan. And what it is a deferral of the employer's share of Social Security tax. It does not include a deferral for Medicare tax. So any payroll taxes, employer share of payroll taxes, that being FICA pretty much, not Medicare, paid between March 27th and December 31st of this year can be deferred, and 50% of that amount is due 12/31/21 and 50% on 12/31/22. And this one is really good because it has near universal applicability among various entities and businesses and all sizes of business. So that's the extent of my remarks about those programs, and thank you for having me. David?
Yeah, Tom and Lena, thank you very much. As a small business myself, navigating today and the different offers can be very confusing. So I think that really gives some light on the subject and the topics, and I appreciate that presentation. One question we had, which I think is a good one online, was from Lisa Ann Schreier. Any discussion on doing a health screening of owners, both via questionnaire prior to arrival or temperature checks upon arrival? This is actually health screening of the owners.
I'll be quick, and Ann, I'm sure you'll probably add a lot more to the discussion. But we did talk about it internally, and we felt like it's kind of a gray area because of some privacy concerns. So instead of asking, the questions and being invasive, we decided to kind of visually monitor, and if something is noted, then we would follow up, privately with that individual owner. So we did decide not to do any pre-screening. That could change in the future, but currently that's our position. Ann?
Thanks, Jay. Our resorts are in Mexico, and we're dealing with a little bit different rules and regulations from various governments there. So we do have to do a temperature screening on every arriving guest. And if their temperature is over 100 degrees, then we have to have special rooms earmarked for quarantining our guests. So you might keep that in mind, just to have a couple of rooms set aside in case you run across something like this, because we obviously want to keep anyone who may be have symptoms, keep them away from as many guests and employees as we can.
Okay, thank you. We do have a question for Tom and Lena. Jim online asked a question: can an independent contractor / sole proprietor receive PPP in unemployment?
Jim, absolutely. They can take the PPP and unemployment, but remember that the PPP is only forgivable up to the extent that you spend the money on what's deemed to be wages. So if you're self-employed, your PPP loan is based, and these, I'm going to use general rules here, on your 2019 income. So let's just use round numbers. Let's say that you made $12,000 in 2019. I'm using that because $1,000 a month. So then you'd be able to borrow 2.5 times 1,000. So you'd be able to borrow 2,500, and then you have to spend that or deem to spend that on payroll to yourself during the 8 weeks after that. So if you're still getting paid, then you probably won't qualify for unemployment. So the PPP is the unemployment is not going to affect your ability to get the PPP, but if you're not paying it in wages because you're trying to qualify for unemployment, or not paying it in deemed wages as a self-employed person because you're trying to qualify for self-employment, then it won't be forgivable. So you can certainly, the answer to your question is more complex than it may seem. You can get the PPP, but you probably can't get it forgiven if you're trying to not pay yourself a salary so you can get the unemployment.
Okay. Thank you, Tom. That was informative. We had a comment online from Emma Cancio. Not a question, very good presentations. Thanks in regards to all from Puerto Rico. Well, Emma, we hope Puerto Rico is rebounding, and we wish the best to you and your associates there in Puerto Rico, too. Thanks for joining us today. Sharon, do you want to talk a little bit about our next town hall and what the subject we're considering and how people can email you maybe for potential subject matter for the next one?
Oh, absolutely, David. Thank you. We will be presenting another town hall, and the next topic that we're considering is vacation ownership sales in the time of COVID-19. So I would welcome anyone who has suggestions about speakers for this topic and suggestions for other topics to email me at sharon@thetrades.com. And again, thank you to our sponsors, the Contact Group and Customer Count, and a big thank you to Georgie Borag-Gordon and John Loker, and to our listeners. Thank you for joining us.
Sharon, let's take one question live real quick, and then we'll finish up here. Jeff, you're on the call. You have a question today?
Yes, thank you. I wanted to find out how management companies or timeshare HOAs or even developers are preparing to protect themselves from the possibility of getting sued down the road by people that go to a resort and get COVID-19 at the resort. I assume liability is potentially a huge issue, and I'd like to hear someone talk about it.
Thank you, Jeff. We appreciate you participating. Any of the panelists want to take a shot at that question?
This is Jay. I can just jump in and add an insight regarding Grand Pacific Resorts. We're very concerned about documentation, protocols, making sure that we are embracing our technology platforms that I mentioned earlier to create a trail of all touches in the rooms, monitoring associates' health and safety, and if we do see signs of illness, then dealing with that, sealing the room for 72 hours. So just a lot of different protocols and documentation. We're implementing as much as possible the hospital cleaning kind of level of oversight, when it comes to making sure the rooms are clean. So that's how we're hoping to protect ourselves from some kind of claim or liability issue.
Thank you, Jay. And Jeff, we appreciate your question. That's a challenging one in this environment. So before we close up, I just would like to thank again the panelists. It's been very informative. First nationwide teleconference on this kind of dicey situation, challenging situation we all find ourselves in today. It's helpful to get our experts and our subject matter trusted sources to speak on these issues, and it's changing and evolving almost hourly. And we are a community, as Sharon mentioned earlier. Wanted to thank Sharon, Georgie, John Loker, and Bob Kobach, our sponsors, our presenters. Again, follow up with Sharon and her email address, and that is, I believe, Sharon@thetrades.com. Right, Sharon? If you want to sign us off, Sharon, again, it's a great idea, and I feel proud to be part of this overall event. Sharon, you can have the last word.
Yeah.
Go ahead, please.
Oh, I appreciate you, David, and you've been so good guiding us through all of this, and Bob Kobach for your help in pushing out the message, and Bob is going to be helping us also with some follow-up more or less a survey. I think it's a little his system's a little sophisticated for our needs, but he has the expertise to help us formulate a strategy, and along with Georgie and John Loker. And so thank you, everybody, for listening. Have a brilliant time, and God bless.
God bless everyone. Take care and stay safe.